Revisiting old Qigong practices. That is going to be the topic of this episode of Qi Life. Okay, so the inspiration for this vlog has come from some of my own recent experiences, as well as from some conversations with some of the people who are on one of the Qigong courses that I'm running at the moment through Long White Cloud Qigong. And you know, we've had some discussion because as you learn Qigong, depending on where you're at with your practice, you might have just barely started, and so everything's brand new to you, and you might be focusing on just a few practices, and that's a great place to start, and that's exactly what you should do. Spend some time focusing on just a few things, becoming familiar with it, starting to experience the effect of those practices, and hopefully the benefits that you'll get from them as well. As you continue on, it's likely that you'll expand out into learning some other practices. And for a time, you might practice all of the practices that you know every day, because you don't know that many of them. And so you can fit them in, and that can be very rich and fulfilling. Over time, it's likely that you're then going to go on to learn still other practices. And at some point, it's not going to be practical for you to continue to do all of those practices every day. And you're going to need to start to pick and choose. And as you continue on, you're probably going to learn more and more and more different practices, which is wonderful. There's so many rich, diverse practices out there for you to learn, and each of them have their own benefits that can be really useful for different specific things. Each of them have their own character that you may enjoy for different reasons, and so on. And it's wonderful to have exposure to and understand all these different parts of Qigong. In that process, though, it will often mean that while you're focusing on, you know, these practices over here, and then maybe these practices over here, sometimes it will be quite a long time since you've practiced these practices over here. And you might sort of start to forget some details about them, or even if you remember the details, they're not to the front of your mind, and your experience of those practices isn't to the front of your mind. And this can make it really interesting when you go back to revisit those practices at some point. Sometimes when you do this, it's like visiting an old friend, and everything comes back and it's familiar, and really you just remember how much you enjoyed those practices before. And it's not like you've really missed anything, but you're like, wow, I really like this, and maybe I'll spend some more time with this now that I'm revisiting it. And that was the kind of experience that one of the participants on the courses shared with me recently. She had been spending a lot of time on other practices, and then within this course we made reference to a set of practices that she had done some years ago, and because of that she reviewed them and said, wow, look, I haven't been doing these in a while, and these are really so wonderful, aren't they? And the thing is, there's so many wonderful things in Qigong that you can't do them all at the same time. It's like there's so many different wonderful foods, and you can't, and it wouldn't be a good idea to try to eat them all at the same time. So there's nothing wrong with focusing on one set of practices, even though you've got another beautiful set of practices that you could be doing. There's a time and a season for everything. But it can be so beautiful sometimes to go back and review and revisit and spend some time with practices maybe that you haven't done for a while. Again, sometimes we just get that wonderful sense of familiarity. Sometimes we may recall something that's of real benefit to us that we've been maybe missing for a while, and it would be good for us to spend some time on. At still other times, when we come back and we review those practices again, we may find it's not so much just revisiting the old and familiar, but because we've learnt other principles more deeply from other practices that we've been doing, that we now actually come with fresh eyes, and we notice things that are new to us, new to our perspective, within those practices that were there all along, but now we're able to understand and perceive them more clearly. And so we get this new, richer layer and understanding of the same practice that we've known for so long. Another aspect of this can be not just about our understanding, but sometimes for us to gain certain things from a practice, there needs to be a shift in our physical body, or possibly in aspects of the function of our energy, before we're able to truly access that within a practice. So when we practice it initially, maybe we practice it at a certain level and we get a certain degree or type of benefit from it. And then later on, over time, even just while we continue to work with the same practice, we can find that we gain more and more understanding and benefit. But sometimes also by going away, focusing on some other aspect of practice, we come back with an ability now for things to move and flow differently within us because of some of the benefits that we got from some of those other practices. And of course, this is also some of the benefit of us exploring a range of practices over time. You know, some people love to, they just learn one set of practices and they just stick with that one set of practices, sometimes for the rest of their life. And I'm not suggesting that there's anything wrong with that. That can actually be a very rich and fulfilling way to practice. For many people, they do find that it's natural that having learnt one set of practices well, they want to explore and try other things. And often the effect of this is that it actually adds further enrichment back to those other practices that they knew, because it opens up their understanding, it opens up aspects of their energy, aspects of their physical movement and so on, that allows them to get more from it. I mentioned that part of the inspiration for this this topic came from some of my own experiences recently as well, and just a very small, simple thing, and it was to do with, of all things, some simple joint rotations. Those of you who've done Qigong with me over a number of years would know that I often, very, very frequently use simple joint rotations as a simple way to prepare for Qigong practice. It's a great way to just get the body moving, to lubricate the joints, as well as to bring our awareness into our body, maybe to bring our awareness away from the other things we've been focusing on and doing in our day, and just bring it into our current experience. And as I was doing some of these joint rotations in my personal practice, just recently over the last few days, I noticed it's like, there's some more I could be getting out of this that I haven't been. Now, this isn't to suggest there was anything wrong with how I had been doing the joint rotations. They had been serving a purpose for me. But I noticed, and I think part of this is to do with a few little physical shifts and things I've been working on in other ways over the last little while. As I was doing this simplest of simple warm-up exercises for my Qigong practice, it's like, I could really change my approach to this a little bit and get more out of it. So sometimes even for the simplest things, when we revisit them, we find there's something new for us to discover, something new for us to benefit from. Anyway, that was my little thought for this vlog today. Hopefully you found something interesting in it. Maybe it might give you some inspiration to revisit some practices that maybe you haven't focused on for a while. I always find it's an enjoyable experience to go back and look at some different practices. And again, once you've learned a lot of practices, there's lots of opportunities to go back and look at some of them from time to time. All right, I look forward to seeing you on another vlog soon.